Hello and welcome to 18 WJTS Inform. We are honored once again to have State Senator Mark Messmer join us in the studio to bring us up to date on legislation, especially in the Senate side. And we're going to hear about some bills that you have had go through committee and have had passed. And then we're also going to get some inside scoop on some of the other colorful bills. I mean, well, that's what we'll call it.
The fun stuff.
The fun stuff.
Yes.
Well, let's talk first of all about some of your bills that have been progressing and have progressed.
Okay. Well, one of the bills that we didn't talk about the first half of session, but I thought it was pertinent because now I think it's up for reading the committee hearing next week in the House. Senate Bill 427 allows for spouses of active duty military members, when they move to Indiana, it allows them to get an automatic provisional license for their occupation. And the military is encouraging states to do this, to make it easier for their active duty military who move every, probably on average every 2 years from base to base to base. We have Grissom Reserve Air Force Base, and then we have Camp Atterbury. And between those, there's about 1,000 active duty military stationed in Indiana. A few at Crane, not very many. But I think about 40% of the military families, when the military member moves, the spouse does not move with them. And the Defense Department really puts that at the feet of the economic difficulty of people with occupations of being able to be gainfully employed when they move with their spouse. And a lot of that has to do with difficulty in getting occupational licenses recognized by the state that you move to.
You mean like a teacher's license or
teacher's
a
license,
nursing license?
Yeah, nurse,
okay.
Physical therapist,
okay.
Accountant. A broad range of occupations, and usually anything that deals with public safety or public health. Every state's got some kind of licensure in place. For those that way if somebody doesn't behave or creates public health problems, the state has the ability to say, yeah, you can no longer practice in that profession. Okay. So it would give them a provisional license to let them start participating in that trade right away. Passed out of the Senate unanimously, and now it's up before the Labor and Pensions Committee in the House. So I did talk to the chairman about that last week. I said, Heath, that would be a really good bill, because Arizona is the only state that has adopted this language so far. And the Defense Department folks who look at criteria of what makes you a good defense industry military friendly family, that's one of the key benchmarks that would put us really into the top defense industry military family friendly states in the country.
And that could be some good money for Indiana.
Absolutely.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Yep.
All right, so that's poised now then to pass through the House and become law.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I had one bill that I sponsored, a House bill that I sponsored, that was up for final passage yesterday, and little did I know until this year that all legislators have the ability to notarize documents. Who knew? But it's in the books. There was never a clarification that when you leave office, your notary duties expire. So it was basically just putting some cleanup language in how the license or the notary qualifications work, and then putting an expiration date when you resign from office or when your term expires. Your notary authority goes with it. So pretty minor, but it passed unanimously, and fun to participate in ones like that. I found out a few years ago we can do weddings as well. So
did not know that.
Who knew?
Pastor Messmer. Okay, you also had some other bills that are making some progress, and then we'll do the baseball.
Sure. So I had two bills that I've sponsored that are up for final passage next week. One is House Bill 1267, and what that does is, right now after the filing deadline, I think you have a 4-day window to withdraw your, when you apply for primary, ballot access, whatever, to run for an office. If it's a local office, you currently only have 4 days after that window, wraps up to withdraw, and this would extend it to a week. Okay. And it's just a minor cleanup thing that came into issue with some municipal elections last year, and that came from some local government folks to help, from the printing of the primary ballots to to when that withdrawal can happen, just to make sure that is a little more flexible. Passed out of the House unanimously. And then House Bill 1403 deals with waste tire regulations and trying to make it easier and smoother for people who deal in the waste tire business to get those tires, so they don't end up in a ravine or a ditch or as a eyesore to the environment, and make it easier to get those into process. I mean, I was amazed. There's like 6 million tires a year that people in the tire recycling business process in Indiana, and this would just help streamline some of those processes and make it less paperwork cumbersome to transport them. So whether it's a waste tire or a used tire, we had to just set some clarity into those definitions, and that passed out of the House unanimously the first half. So don't expect any problems with that. And then 2 of my bills that are in Senate committees are going to move out of committee next week. Really excited about Senate Bill 206. That's the deposition of child sex abuse victims. It'll no longer be a unlimited, unrestricted access by a defense attorney on a child sex abuse victim. I mean, if they're going to get the opportunity to have a deposition of that child, it'd have to get approval by the judge and show some need why that deposition has to occur. Protections for the defendant and protection for the victim. I mean, both, to make sure the defendant still has all the legal rights they need to defend themselves and prepare for trial, but takes that child victim and gives them a little more protection from being harassed and intimidated, and many times not able to get that child victim back to trial. So good on that. And then Senate Bill 409, which updates the Employment of Minors Act in the state, takes it from the Department of Education, moves it to the Department of Labor, and streamlines the process for kids to get work permits with an online registry system with the Department of Labor. So that's ready to move out of committee, and I would think those will both be smooth sailing once they're out of committee.
Okay. Now, there were some bills that you thought were smooth sailing, but when they got on the
bumps.
floor or whatever, there were some bumps. That's kind of the inside stories.
Yeah. Well, one, a bill that passed out of the House, 100-0, is House Bill 1002. And that would eliminate the criteria that teachers have to be evaluated. Right now, when we passed that bill in 2011, and the base function of that bill, where teachers need to be evaluated every year, is good. Principals agree it's good. Superintendents agree it's good. I'm sure teachers even agree it's good. But part of that, there was some linkage that said a teacher's evaluation has to be, part of that criteria has to be on student test scores. And I mean, that's hugely controversial. There was a very high degree of discomfort when that bill was moved through. The authors and the sponsors of that legislation would not budge on pulling that out, and there was a lot of pressure put on everyone in the House and Senate back in 2011, because the overall intent of it is very good, but that was kind of like a poison pill in the middle of it, and we really had to take all or none. And House Bill 1002 would take that test score criteria out, and
so teacher evaluations would not be linked to
test scores.
Okay.
I support that 100%. And that bill got to the Senate Education Committee, and the chairman wanted to either make it only apply for 2 years or not move the bill. And I thought, what in the world is he thinking? When he was having the hearing, my office is right by the chamber. He came to talk to me, and I said, Jeff, you got to move that bill. And I thought, why is there resistance to that? Well, I had forgotten that the author of that bill was Senator Cruz, who was the education chairman in 2011, no longer the chairman of the committee, but still on the committee. And it was a major pride of ownership issue for him that part of his baby was going to get tinkered with. And they sell it like we're no longer going to do teacher evaluations, and which is completely wrong. I mean, number one, not every teacher teaches content that has a standardized test.
Okay.
So then what do you do? I mean, not every teacher, could be. And in a high school, maybe you teach a class that only has AP students, and you might only have 10 or 15 people in a class, and 1 year to the next, you might have, go from one person not passing to two, the AP exam at the end of the course. What, are you going to be dinged because you had a decrease in the number of your students that passed when you're dealing. I mean, all of the hiccups with that policy were just, I mean, they were innumerous. And so we had a pretty big knockdown, drag out in caucus. And fortunately, you know, I made a pretty impassioned push to move this ahead. And the majority of our caucus, it was about 30 of our 40 members agreed we need to move ahead with this unaltered so we could pass it, get it to the governor, and be done with that. And then we had another issue that popped up Thursday as really quite a surprise. We had a bill the first half of session that we defeated that would have required any bills that deal with criminal sentencing, you know, have to be approved by an interim study committee. It has a couple of Senate and a couple of House members on it, and then a lot of non-elected people on it. And it would have required any criminal code updates to be approved by the interim study committee on criminal law before it could be considered in the General Assembly. Well, I mean, most of us aren't on that committee, didn't want our authority as legislators to be overridden by that board, and voted it down. And when he brought it back as a resolution, but with a little twist, he said, we want the House and the Senate to change their internal rules that require, you know, any criminal code be ran through the summer study committee before it can be considered on the floor. And ooh, there was some tempers were flying. So it got defeated, I think 30-18, you know, on the floor, and that was the author of the bill, the author of the resolution, was unhappy, but he should have been told, you know, to just, that bill had to go through a committee. I mean, it should have never been allowed to hit the floor. But
well, you know, in a year where there's not a whole lot of excitement,
we
need to have some
we need a little drama.
That's
yes,
and there it was.
You bet.
All right, well, Senator, thank you very much once again for
My
coming
pleasure.
in. And good luck with your bills. Sounds like they're all on track to move through smoothly.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for coming once again. We'll see you next week, and the next week, and then the next week, and maybe the week after to kind of wrap things up.
We should be done March 11th, so there's light at the end of the tunnel.
You can see it right now.
Yep.
Thank you, Senator.
You're welcome.
Thank you for watching 18 WJTS. We are local people watching local people.